Welcome to Module 2 of iHub Basic Navigation. In this module, we will be covering how to create different types of files using iHub's three-dot menu. You're also going to learn how to schedule reports, archive them, and copy or move them to different locations. You should have already viewed Module 1. If you have not, please use your browser's back button to access Module 1 first before viewing this one. Now let's continue on now with Module 2 in the iHub Basic Navigation course. So for those of you who are working on these exercises, perhaps you're working on your exercises one at a time, I am going to, at the very beginning of each video module from this point forward, I will go ahead and just start on the login area just in case, just as a reminder of how you will get in and out of iHub. So again, we are in the testing area, which is the red area. When you're working in the real iHub environment, this will normally be blue, but we're going to go ahead and just log in really quick using our student 4 and iHub 4 username and password. Okay, and if you remember from video module number 1, this is our iHub environment, and we went ahead and took a look at various different menu items in here. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to continue forward, and we're going to start looking at using a few other areas, in particular what we call our three-dot menu. So you should be in the main menu in the training folder right now, and that's what we're looking at right now. We're in that training folder. We created one of our own folders right here called May. We just did that in the last video module, but we are in the main area right now. What we're going to do is we are going to actually find the report that we've been using, and we're going to start kind of looking at different aspects of what we can do with that. I'm going to go ahead and click into my May folder that I just created, and I'm going to start working in there because this is my new folder, this is my new area, this is where I want to keep all of my files. But you can see we copied over that expenditure GL detail by budget report right here into the new folder. So we're going to start working with this one and see what it does. So what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at this area right here. This is called the three-dot menu. And again, if you just take a look at your file here, you're going to see that right next to the checkbox right here, we've got these three dots, and that's our three-dot menu. When you hover, you can either hover over it or you can click it. And when you do, you're going to see that you have a whole bunch of options that pop up for you to be able to do certain aspects, certain activities with this report. So this is called our three-dot menu. So notice again, it comes up whenever you hover over it. You don't need to click it, but you can. And this menu is going to change depending on what type of report you're looking at. You're going to notice that if you have a BERT document report, you're going to have 10 items that show up. If you have a design file, a BERT design file, you're going to have 13. So it does vary depending on what type of document you're working in. Let's take a look at this menu, and we're going to cover all of the different elements that are listed here on our three-dot menu. Our first one right here is Edit Report Design. I'm not going to click this one right here because this is actually to be used only at the controller's office. So the Edit Report Design is only for the controller's office. This might be also used if you're a super user or you have super users in your agency that have been given access. They might use this, but again, our training today is not for super users. It's for our average users that aren't creating reports. We're using reports, and so we do not use this area here. We do, however, use the Run area. The Run area, if I were to click that, you're going to see when I click Run, it just runs the report. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of this one just to show you it does the exact same thing as when I click on the report. You can see we went to the exact same place. So really, when it comes down to it, the easiest way to run your report is just to click on it. But we do have this 3-dot menu that provides a run option right there, and that's what it does. We do have our next option right below it, which is a run and save. Now, a run and save is going to create a new version of whatever report we run, where you can set the parameters and you can save them exactly that way. So you don't have to keep putting parameters in every single time you open up the report. It's just going to run according to whatever parameters you set, and it will always run that way. And you won't be given an option to change the parameters because it's just going to make it into a regular document with no parameters page. So when you do this, the file will become a BERT document at that point, and we already we were exploring a little bit earlier about what those BERT documents were. But again, these BERT documents, it doesn't allow a parameter change. It just runs by set parameters. And one of the benefits to this is it's now a little faster to run because you skip that parameter section. And of course, this would be of great value if you keep having to put the same parameters in. You might as well just create this BERT document, set the parameters, and then just run the report on a regular basis. So right now we're going to do a quick exercise to show you how to do a run and save. So I'm going to take this document right here, and I need to make sure to select the document, and I'm going to go ahead and do the hover, and I'm going to do a run and save, and I'm going to click on that. For this particular exercise, what we want to do is we want to, and you can see that we have accounting year 2019, we have a beginning and an ending acceptance date, we have beginning object code and an ending object code. So we're only taking a look at a range of object codes between 5100 and 5200. And but in this particular exercise, let's say we do not want to run this report for the whole quarter. We don't want to run, or we don't want to run it for the months of January and February. What we want to do is we just want to run it for the month of January. So what we're going to do here is we're going to leave the beginning acceptance date right here, but we're going to set the ending acceptance date to January 31st of 2019. We can do this one of two ways. We can either use the calendar function right here, and we can select January 31st and OK, or we can also type it in. We can do 1/31/2019. We can type that in as well. So we can do it either way. So we have now changed our report so that it's only for the month of January, because we don't care about February, we don't care about March or whatever. We just want January, and we've changed that date. Now we're going to go ahead and click the next button. What'll happen here is that it's going to ask you, okay, you want this brand new report that's a document now. Where do you want to put it? And so we're going to look at the output location. It's going to default to home folder, but we actually want to click other, because we're going to look to make sure it's in the proper place, wherever we want it to be. So let's go ahead and browse this. And I'm going to look up here again at basically my breadcrumb trail that tells me where I'm at, what folder am I in. And I'm seeing that the last one on the list is May. And that's actually exactly where I want to be. That's the folder I want to keep my new version in. I want to keep it in the May folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, because we're in the right spot. Of course, if I had to maneuver around or I had subfolders in that May folder, I would want to click into those. But in this case, we were exactly where we wanted to be. So we want to go ahead and with the document name, which is our next field down here, it's going to default to whatever your document name was before. But in this case, I want to make sure to differentiate it so I don't get it mixed up. And so I just want to put January in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I am just going to put January dash, and I'm going to leave it just exactly as it is. And then that way I know that this is the report that I created that just has to do with January. It won't go past January. So now I have changed that. Name, and now I need to go down to the next section And it's going to ask me if the file already exists, do I create a new version, replace it, or keep a certain amount of versions. And what we're going to do here is we are going to just select the replace the latest version, just in case if we had, you know, another one out there that we forgot we created. I'm going to go ahead and click replace the latest version. And then for copy permission from, we have output folder and latest version of the file. We're just going to leave it on the default and hit finish. So now you're going to see that the report, as soon as I hit that finish button, the report runs. So it literally is a run and save. I ran it according to the parameters I set, but I also saved it according to the parameters I set. So now you can see that the report has run, and it's only the dates we specified. So you're seeing that we have a 2-page report right here. You can see we're on page 1 of 2. If we use the scroll bar up here, we're going to be on 2 of 2. And again, back to 1 of 2. But you can see that the dates listed here in this report only go to January 25th. And if we go back, they started at January 11th. So it changed according to our parameters. We just wanted to see January, so we created this new report so that we could just see January. So as far as how do we close this report once we ran it, we took a look at the information we wanted to. Again, we always go up to that tab up top and we can just close it out. Now, if you look in here, I'm actually in my May folder, but there's only one report showing, and that was the report that I just ran. So what happened to my report? I just created one, and it was called January, or January on it. Well, a lot of times when you're working in iHub, you have to hit the F5 refresh button. So I'm going to hit the F5 refresh button on my keyboard. So again, I'm looking on my keyboard, and there is an F5 button. I'm going to hit that one right now. And when I do, it's like a refresh button. And now you can see that I have my January report listed right there. So again, look at the type. We started off with an expenditure GL that was a BERT design, and now we have a January version that is a BERT document. So it changed the format of the file. So when you do a run and save, you're going to start off with a master document with our BERT design document. And when you do a run and save, it will save it automatically as a BERT document. So let's click into it because we want to see what it looks like. So when I click on this, remember, when I clicked on the first one up here, when I clicked on there, I had a parameters page where I had to put those parameters in. But what happens now that I created this BERT document? We're going to click on that. You can see there's no parameter page. The parameter page went away because it no longer has it. It only runs according to what you put in as your original parameter when you did the run and save. So now every time I click on this report, it's going to run exactly according to the parameters, which is only for the month of January. Now I want you to think about this in terms of if you were to create a design document that tracks the whole year, we'll say. And so this particular date parameter would maybe have, and we'll say it's a calendar year. You're tracking something and it's January 1st of 2019 through December 31st of 2019. You're tracking the whole year. And you create a design document that does this. Well, certainly what you could do is you could create these BERT documents that do it for February, March, April, and so you could have 12 different documents that you have. Well, what the system is going to do is it's going to populate according to those parameters. So if you run a February file that has February parameters and you run it in January before the information is in there, you're going to get a report that has nothing. But if you run that report every single day in the month of February, it will populate every single day that information is updated. So you literally can have 12 different reports, each one of those, and you can build them ahead of time so that as you get through the calendar year, you just pick up your whatever month you're in, and you can click on that report every single day, and it's going to update every single day according to those parameters. You're not going to have to put new dates in. It's going to do it for you. It's already built in. So those are some things for you to think about as far as how you use the BERT document compared to the BERT design. And it's food for thought on that. So certainly that's one good way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and close out the document. We're going to close that right there. And that's pretty much the way that we do our run and save. So now let's go ahead and get back into, we're staying in the same folder, but this time we're going to go ahead and take a look at that 3-dot menu. We're going to work in that same master document, our BERT design document. We're going to select it here, and we're going to get on that 3-dot menu. We've covered this, we've covered the run, we've covered run and save. We're now going to move on to schedule. We're going to find out what happens when I do a schedule with this report. So I'm going to click on schedule right now. What this is going to do when I select schedule, it's going to allow me to schedule the report to run on a regular basis. And there's a couple different ways that we can run these. We can choose to schedule it right now, or we can we can schedule it once, or we can actually schedule it to do a reoccurring run. And that one in particular is one that I find to be fascinating, because if you find that you are sitting in there in your agency and you're running the same report every week, you can actually schedule your report to run on its own every week. And so we'll take a look at a little bit of how that works. So we're going to do an exercise right here. We want to go ahead and schedule a report here. We want to run this same report, but this time we want to schedule it to run for later today, so we don't forget. So our dialog box opens up here, and we can add our job name right to the top of it. Now remember, it defaults to whatever folder name we're in, but I'm going to go ahead and name it something different so I don't get it mixed up. I'm going to name it schedule. And put a dash there. That way I know this is my scheduled report. Excuse me. And so we have, let's put a C in there. All right, we've got scheduled report. Now, as far as the priority, you can see that you can put it on low, medium, or other. For the most part, you're just going to leave it on medium. These run very quickly and very fast. There's really no need to make it a higher priority or a lower priority for that matter. For the most part, we just leave it on default. Then for the executable version area right here, it's going to ask you always use version 1. Always use the latest version of it. So it's asking you, do you want like the very, very raw version of that, or do you want the last version that you created? So it just gives you a little bit of options there. We're going to leave it on the default right now. We're always going to use version 1 of this particular report. And then it's going to ask the scheduling option. Do we want to run it right now? Do we want to do it once or reoccurring? And I'm going to show you a little bit, we are going to run it once, but before we get into that, I'm going to show you a little bit about your other options here. So right now is the default, and if we hit next right here, it would actually just run the report, and it would run right after we hit our finish button. If we hit reoccurring here, this is going to give us an option of running a couple different ways. You can see here on the drop-down menu, we can run this report every day, weekdays, whichever weekdays we want, specific days of the week every week, first day of every month, we've got that option, and we've got the last day of every month. So you can see there's really good options here. We can, again, every day, we can do our weekdays, we can do very specific days of the week, first day of every month, last day of every month. So we have a lot of options here. And then the other thing we can do is we can set a particular time that we want that to run. So just imagine if you need to run a report every single Monday when you come in. Wouldn't it be nice to schedule that report? You could schedule it to run at 6 a.m. Let's say you get into work at 7:30 a.m. You'll have that report all ready to go. You don't have to do anything. You just show up, click on the report, and it's all ready ran for you for the day, for the day. So you won't even have to think about it. So scheduling is a really nice option if you have regular reports, because you can actually schedule them to just keep going, and then all you have to do is access them when you need them. You can also set a starting and an ending date on that. For my particular exercises that I've populated in the training environment, I actually set an expiration date. I said that I wanted to start these in May, and I expired them in December. So you'll see that when we look at the scheduled reports that are in the training environment, that there is an expiration date on those. I did set an expiration date because I didn't want to forget and have that run through eternity. I want to make sure to be able to either keep it going after that, or to delete it and not have it anymore. So you can see that this gives you a lot of different options when you select this reoccurring area. So but for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to select it once, because we just want to run it one time and we want to run it for later today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select 20, actually I think I'll probably select 15 minutes from now. So you can see the system by default, right now it's 3:39 p.m. It automatically says you can't schedule it any later than 10 minutes from now, because it realizes that you still have a few more steps to get through, and so it's managing your time because you won't be able to run it that quick. So it does automatically default to that, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and make this 4 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this 4 o'clock p.m. And again, I want it to run today. I just want it to run 20 minutes from now, so I selected 4 p.m. So now I can go ahead and click that next button right there. So now my parameters box opens up. So it's saying, okay, you have this report. It normally runs this way. Do you still want it to run this way? But for me, I am actually going to say no. I don't want it to run. I just want it to run maybe from January 1st to February 15th. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in February 15th of 2019. I want 6 weeks worth. I want a month and a half of data. I don't want it to be the whole full time that it offers. So just like the run and save, it's going to allow you to set your parameters like you want, and then it's going to always keep those parameters. It's going to run it over and over again the same way with these exact parameters. You won't be asked to change those parameters again. This is the only time you get to set what those parameters are. So again, once you create the specific parameters, the report is always going to run these, and you can't change it on the specific report. So we're happy with that. We're going to click next. And now it's going to ask for a headline up here, because it's going to say, what do you want your headline to be? Well, for this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put schedule. And I'll put my initials, just so I know. As far as the output location, it's going to default to the home folder, but I want to make sure it's in that May folder, because I don't want it to get mucked up with the all my other reports. So I'm going to go ahead and click in the other folder, or the other option, and then I'm going to browse over to make sure I'm in my May folder. Again, I can look at the string here and I can see that I am in the May folder. It's the last one on the list, so that's okay. If I had subfolders, they would be showing right here and I could click on those, but I know I'm in the right folder here, so I'm going to click OK. So now I can actually change the document name, and again, we want to make sure to differentiate it so it doesn't get mixed up. So I'm going to make it schedule, and LM, and I'll create that addition to the file name so that I know it's different than the other one. For version name, we're going to go ahead and skip that. That's an area that you generally don't use, so you don't need to worry about that. And same thing with the document format. It is going to ask you what type, do you want it. You can select different types, but for the most part, when you're running a regular report, you're going to want to probably keep it as a BERT document, because that way you can keep running it every single day. But certainly if you had to run it because you had to submit it to your boss or a coworker every day and they needed it in Excel, you could certainly select Excel if you wanted that. But for our exercise, we're going to leave it in the BERT document format. And then the other area that's really great right here is that you can actually send a notification. This is going to give you an option. You can click this, send me an email notification with an attachment. If you select it, it's going to use the email notification that's associated with your profile. Remember, we covered that earlier. And it will actually send you an email notification when this report runs. So in my scenario from before, if I was running a report every Monday at 6 in the morning, I would get an email reminder in my email box that report had ran at 6 in the morning. But one thing I do want to have you note on this, we are working with email systems, and each different agency is different on what it allows and what it doesn't allow. That because this is an automated email, you may have to work with your IT staff to make sure that the emails are being received. We have tested this out with the Controller's Office and the Office of Project Management. It does work. We can confirm that this mechanism works. However, you will probably, if you try it and you do not receive the email notification, you may need to get in touch with your IT department, who will then in turn work with the Controller's Office to allow those emails to come through. But just keep that in mind. If it doesn't work, it's likely an email problem. It's probably getting blocked, and you will have to work with your IT department to get it so that they come through. And again, get authorization and approval for that as well. So the other section here, if the file already exists, we're usually being asked this every single time. Do we want to create a new version, keep only the latest certain amount of versions, or replace the latest version? For this exercise, what we're going to do is we are going to choose to replace it, and then copy permissions from output folder or latest version. We're just going to leave it on the default output folder and hit the finish button. So now, one thing I did want to mention on that is in order to navigate through, what if I accidentally put the wrong parameter in? There is tabs up at the top in that dialog box that will allow you to navigate back to the Save As parameters and scheduled areas so that you can make corrections. But once you hit the finish button, like I did just now, now you can't go back. You would have to delete your job, and then you'd have to redo it, which actually is quite quick to do, so it's not too bad. But it does allow you to go back to the previous screens that you were in if you had the wrong parameters, or if you wanted, if you changed your mind and you decided that instead of scheduling once, you wanted to schedule it regularly. You could do that, but again, you have to do it before you hit that finish button. So, so notice we do have a confirmation screen that's giving us details on when it will run and where it will be. It's saying that the job name is going to be schedule, just so like along with the file name that I put on there. It's going to be in May. You can see the May folder right there, and then of course that's the folder that we are using for it. And then again, your job status right here, when you click on that, you can see it's going to give you the scheduled, when it's going to run next. We ran it at 4 o'clock on this date. And then what is the report that we originally used to create it, and what is the output, and what's it going to be? It's going to be a BERT document with the name schedule. So you have all those details that you can look at, and again, you can also delete the schedule using this screen as well. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep it going. So we are just going to go ahead and X out of this particular screen. And now, if you look in here in the May folder, if I hit that F5 button again to refresh it, you're going to see that our folder our job that we just scheduled does not show up in our folder. But there's a reason for that. It's scheduled. It's not run. It has not ran yet. And so we're going to check back in right around 4 o'clock, and we're going to see where it's at. But for now, how do we know that that actually successfully ran? Well, this is where we can go to the My Jobs section on the left-hand menu. We're going to click in that area right now. And remember, it defaults to completed right here. But if you look right over here on the left-hand side, we have schedules. So I'm going to click on that one. And now you're going to see that my report that I just scheduled with the name schedule is listed right here. And the next run is October 21st at 4 o'clock. So it is scheduled to run at 4 o'clock, just like I set it up. So if you need to confirm that your scheduled report is in the queue or ready or scheduled properly, you will always look in the My Jobs, you'll look in the Scheduled tab, and you will be able to see your job there. Now, once it runs, we'll actually be able to see it in our folder. We'll check back on that in just a bit. So now the other thing is, notice, of course, that our scheduled job is not in the completed area yet. We have other jobs that we have been completed, but it's not going to land in the completed area until it runs at 4 o'clock. So that is another thing to note. All right, so with that being said, we have finished our scheduled job. We are going to go back to this training folder here, just to get back in. We are going to go ahead and go back into the May folder because we're going to be working in that folder. And we are going to move on to our next item on the 3-dot menu. So let's go ahead and go back to, we're going to go ahead to this exact same file we were working in before, that expenditure GL1. We're going to select that one. We're going to go to the 3-dot menu, and then we covered our run and save, we covered our schedule, but now we're going to do a create parameter value file. We're going to see what happens when we do a create parameter value file. So let's click on that one. So once you do a create parameter value file, this is going to use the master file, our BERT design document, to create a variation of it. And I like to look at it like what we're doing is we're slicing and dicing it for different purposes. So we're taking a report that's allowing us a certain date range and certain object codes, and we're going to slice and dice it so that we use it, we still have parameters there, we can still use this parameter feature in there, but we're going to make it a little bit more specific and customized to what we need. So in this case, for our exercise, what we're going to do is, we like this report, we think it's a good report, but it keeps giving us this 5200 object code. And maybe in my agency, I'm only responsible for monitoring object code 5100. Now, again, I think this is kind of a far out scenario, but certainly imagine if you had a whole bunch of budget accounts that you were, or a range of budget accounts that you had in this report, and imagine that you're assigned to monitor certain budget accounts. Certainly you could change your range so that you're only monitoring what you care about, which is the budget accounts you've been assigned. So think about that type of scenario. But for ours, what we're saying is that I don't care about object code 5200. That's not what I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for object code 5100. So I want to change this so that I can still change that date range and I can still do a whole bunch of things with this report. But I don't care about 5200. I just care about 5100. I want to keep it more narrow. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to, first of all, take a look. We're going to work from the top to bottom. We're going to take a look at that file name, and we're going to name it something different, because at the end of the day, it's going to save it, and we don't want it to get mixed up with our other file. So I'm going to name this para, P-A-R-A for parameter value file, and I'm going to put my initials on there. And I'm going to just create it a little bit different name so that I know it's a different file. Now it's asking me where do I want to put it, what folder do I want to put it. Now you can see that in this particular screen it actually lists the May folder. It lists the whole sequence of folders so I can see it. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to click that browse. I'm going to look right up here. I can see my May folder there. That's where I want it. And I'm going to click OK. And now it's going to ask me if the parameter value file already exists. Do I want to replace it, create a new version, or keep a certain amount of versions? I want to replace it, just in case. And now I get to go to the parameter section of this, and this is where I get to customize this report to make it a little bit more for what I care about. So I'm going to update the parameters by keeping all of the fields, but I am going to change the ending object code to 5100 instead of 5200. So I'm going to go ahead and select that out, and I'm going to just simply type in 5100. I'm just going to type in what I care about, 5100. So I am at the beginning object code and the ending object code are both 5100, so that's all I'm going to get is the 5100. So now I can select that OK button. Now you can see that you're still in that main folder and we can't see our file we just created. Again, where did it go? Well, we want to hit that F5 button first just to see, is it in there? So let's hit the F5 button. And now you can see, yes, that's exactly where it was at. We have the para LM file, that was our report parameter file. And now you can see that we took this expenditure GL master document, our BERT design, and we just created a report parameter values version of this. So, so now let's go ahead and click on that report because we want to see what's the difference between, the original report and this one. So when we click on it, let's take a look. We have the same date range, same accounting year, but now our beginning and ending object codes are 5100. So we customized our report to what we care about. And now when we hit finish, we can run the report and you're going to see that our object code, which is listed right here, it's 5100 and it's only 5100. That's it. We have normally a 5-page report, but it's now only a 2-page report, and it's because we only have object code 5100 in it. So let's go ahead and close this tab up, and you can see that that is what our report parameter values file does. It keeps the parameters in there, but it just lets you customize it to be whatever you want that's specific to your needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few more options here. I'm going to select that same expenditure GL detail here. And you're going to see that we got all the way down to create parameter value file. We have a download option. I'm not going to click on this one because I do want to tell you, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, now that's the way I'm going to download this to Excel. No, that is not the way you're going to download it to Excel. What happens when you click on this download is it's an HTML download. So all it does is it takes and it translates it to an HTML file, and really there's not too many of us that can do anything with an HTML file. So this is not the way that you're going to get it to Excel. I'll cover that in just a little bit. Share. This is actually the exact same thing we just looked at on the action menu up top. It's just another way to get there. So we have two different ways to do it. We can use that action item right here and get to share, or we can use the 3-dot menu and we can use share here. It does the exact same thing. There's also a details button here. If you click on this one, all it's going to do is give basic details about that report. It's going to give the name, the type, the folder location, the version, the file size, created by user and the date, whether or not it was shared, yes or no, access rights for the report, auto archive specifications. Really, the only time you're going to use this for the most part is if you need to know any of that information. If you're like, who is this shared with? This is where you would go. If you said, has this thing been auto archived? This is where you would go. So this is really where you're going to get all the fine details about this report. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click that back button so we can get back in here. I'm going to select that again, and we're going to go to that 3-dot menu. Now you have the move to and the copy to. Now, this is the exact same thing that we had on that action menu item before, but there is one difference on these. This is where we can change the document name when we move it or we copy it. And so I'm just going to show you the screen really quick. If you click on the move to, and you're using the 3-dot menu to do this, you're going to notice that you have a new file name. This is where I can rename it. And if you remember, when we did it on the action menu item, we didn't have that option. So that's the big difference on that. And I'm going to show you that as well on the, we have the move to, we have the copy to. Again, that new file name is right there. So that is the big difference between using your action menu item versus your 3-dot menu, is whether or not you want to rename the actual file when you move it or copy it. And then let's take a look at the last couple items here. We have we had our move to, copy to. We do have rename, and this of course is renames the report. I'll just show you the field. That's where you can rename it. Again, if you did a move or a copy to and you realized suddenly, and you did it with the action menu item where it didn't allow you to change the name and you realized it midway through, you certainly can always go back in and just change your file name right there and rename it. So there's that aspect. And then we also have our auto archive. So our auto archive feature here, I'm just going to show you this really quick. It's the exact same feature as we had before with the action menu item where we had auto archive. But what you're going to notice is this is a little simpler. It doesn't give you as many options. If you remember correctly, the other auto archive gave you 4 options on how you can auto archive this. This one's a pretty basic one. It's saying that you're going to enable expiration for this file, which means basically you're going to turn on the archive function for this. And then you're going to have it delete after a certain date and time. It's going to ask, do you want to archive this file before you delete it? And then it also asks you if you want to expire your dependent files. Remember, this is the big difference between the other auto archive and this one, is that this one actually allows you to expire those dependent files. So you saw in our exercise just now, we used one document, our BERT design document, and we created 2 other files from it. We created a regular document. From our BERT design document, we created a BERT document, and we created a parameters value file. If I were to expire those and I selected the expired dependent files, what would happen is all 3 of those documents would expire at the same time, so I wouldn't have to manage them independently. So that is the difference between the different archive sections. And then we have our last area here, which is the delete. And again, if I select it accidentally, it is always going to give me this confirmation. Are you sure you want to delete this file? And so you'll never accidentally delete it without getting some sort of dialog box that warns you about it. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that right now. So as you can see, the 3-dot menu right here that we have just covered, it allows you to basically create a whole bunch of different types of documents or types of files using your master document. So again, we covered that we could just run the report. We could do a run and save, which would make a design document into a regular document. We could schedule it so that we could do that once later on in the day, or we could schedule it so it's reoccurring. We found out how to create a parameter value file, which is just basically taking a master file and slicing and dicing it, but keeping that parameter option in there. We found out that the download here doesn't do us any good because it's an HTML download. The share is just like our action menu share. Our details just gives us really fine details about the file. And that we have a move to and copy to option that's just like the action menu item, except for we can actually rename the file if we do it this way. And then of course we have the rename option here and another auto archive option that's similar to the action menu, except for we can actually expire dependent files using the auto archive on this menu. And then of course we have our delete function as well. So there's a lot of different things we did. And speaking of our scheduled report, we are at 4:01. So let's go back into the My Jobs, and we're going to go back to that schedules area to see how our report's doing. You can see it's gone now because technically it should have ran already. So let's go ahead in the completed area. We're going to click that, and you're going to see, oh, there's our schedule report right there. My schedule LM report. It's sitting right there, and it just ran at 4 o'clock in 5 seconds. And now if I click back into my May folder, I'm going to click back in there, and guess what? There it is, scheduled LM, and it's my BERT document. So if I click that, it's going to just run because it is no longer a parameter file, or it doesn't have the parameter option. It's just a regular document. So you can see that when you do the scheduling, it does show up in different places. So if you're looking for it after it's scheduled, then it should be in your folder that you told it to go to. If you're looking at it before it's scheduled to run, you're going to have to look in the My Jobs area and go to the Schedules tab to be able to find it. So this completes our module number 2, and if you must, in order to complete the class, you do have to watch all 6 modules, video modules. So you should have already seen module 1. You just finished module 2. Please continue on with module 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then you will, at the end of module 6, you will actually finish your class exercises, or make sure that they're finished, and then also take the class exam in order to get class credit. But again, go ahead and move on now to module number 3, and we will see you there.